I'm so tired of liberals ghosting half this country. Conservatives do it too, but not nearly as much. Look, whoever's doing it, it's got to stop, because we're at a point now where politics has broken up more families than letting your wife see your phone.
You need to hear this because Bill Maher is officially declaring war on his own side again. This time, the target is the growing wave of anti-American sentiment bubbling up within the left. Ever since Trump secured his second term, the very same liberals who were celebrating the country under Biden are now acting like they're too good for the flag. Maher is exposing this hypocrisy with brutal honesty. Instead of joining the "I hate it here" trend, he is calling out the elite for their double standards. This is the breakdown you haven't seen yet. Before we get into the details of his most controversial take yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more deep dives. Now, let's get into the fire.
Now, on the liberal side, there's two camps now. The "we need to keep talking to people" wing and the "go no contact" wing. That's what they call it now, go no contact. This belief that Trump voters, even if it's your own parents, are too deplorable for human contact and must be cut off. You know, like Scientologists do to suppressive people.
Maher started this firestorm by attacking the Democratic Party's total refusal to even acknowledge the humans who voted for Trump. In the current landscape, these voters aren't just opponents. They are treated as toxic, untouchable outcasts who don't deserve a seat at the table. And Maher has the receipts. We've all seen those viral moments, like Jimmy Kimmel's wife admitting she pressured family members with letters and then severed ties with anyone who didn't obey her political demands. That wasn't called out as radical. It was praised as a virtuous stand. Beyond that, we're seeing a surge in stories of women proudly vowing never to date across the aisle, as if a different ballot choice is a fatal character flaw. Maher's point is razor sharp. When you refuse to talk, listen, or live alongside half of your own country, you aren't saving democracy. You are the one actually dismantling it. Somewhere in the last decade, healthy disagreement was replaced by total social exile, and Maher is holding the mirror up to everyone drawing those lines.
A former speechwriter for Obama named David Litt wrote an op-ed this year called "Is It Time to Stop Snubbing Your Right-Wing Family?" where he admitted he'd had a change of heart and that was the wrong approach. So, of course, then the woke wing tried to banish him for breaking ranks on their policy of hating people who don't agree with you on everything, because what fun is life if you're not cutting somebody off?
The warning from Maher is that this spiral is only getting faster and more dangerous. Now, any leftist brave enough to break the seal and actually speak with a conservative is being treated like a traitor or banned from the circle. This isn't because they've changed their minds, far from it. It's simply for the crime of humanizing the opposition. This is where the logic completely falls apart. If the left was truly confident in the strength of its own ideas, a conversation wouldn't be seen as a betrayal. It would be seen as the ultimate opportunity. Dialogue is the only way a mind has ever been changed. When you engage, you can persuade, challenge, and find the common ground that everyone claims to want. Instead, many now treat a simple conversation like it's a contagious disease. Maher's insight cuts deep. A movement that is this terrified of basic dialogue isn't protecting its values. It's broadcasting its own insecurity to the world. Silencing people doesn't mean you won the argument. It just means you're too afraid to have it.
Mr. Litt asked the question, what has all this banishing accomplished? Oh, I know. A second helping of MAGA, that's what. Molly McNerney, Jimmy Kimmel's wife and head writer, went public on this topic recently, so I feel it's fair to comment respectfully in public. She says she's lost relationships with relatives because she wrote them an email before the election with 10 reasons why they shouldn't vote for Trump, and some still didn't obey.
Exactly. That's the specific narrative Maher highlighted regarding the internal family drama in the Kimmel household. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. There is a massive faction that genuinely believes the left should never, under any circumstances, communicate with the right. To this group, even a basic chat is a sellout. But Maher doesn't put the blame solely on the spouses. The real weight falls on the influential media voices like Kimmel himself, who have spent years painting Trump and his supporters as subhuman. When high-profile figures frame political rivals as existential monsters instead of just people with different ideas, it fundamentally warps how citizens view their own neighbors and family. Maher's point is devastating. This rhetoric doesn't just change votes. It ruins lives. When politics becomes a religious war of good versus evil, disagreement isn't seen as normal. It's seen as a threat that must be cut out of your life entirely.
I can think of 100. But I would never present it to someone as an ultimatum. Ultimatums don't make people rethink their politics, they make them rethink you. Somewhere along the way, my values became code for I'm the only one with a moral compass. You know what would have been a better exercise? Write a top 10 list to yourself where you try to imagine 10 reasons why 77 million Americans didn't want to trust you with taking power. And I say that as someone who votes Democratic. As I like to remind my very pure friends, we voted for the same person. You're just why she lost.
Maher is hitting the nail on the head here, and the data backs him up. Many insiders are starting to admit the party essentially engineered its own downfall. First, the leadership rallied behind an untested and deeply unpopular candidate, betting that voters would simply comply instead of needing a reason to show up. Then, they prioritized messages that felt completely foreign to the average American family. These were slogans and policies that felt disconnected from the crushing reality of inflation, crime, and basic common sense. Even as the warning signs flashed red, the party refused to pivot. Instead of listening to the flyover states, they doubled down on the same condescending, woke lectures that the public was already tuning out. Every piece of constructive criticism was labeled as bigotry or ignorance. The result was as predictable as it was shocking. It wasn't just a loss. It was a total rejection of the lecture culture. Maher's point is haunting. When you ignore the voters and punish those who disagree, you shouldn't be shocked when the country hits back at the ballot box.
Can we please try to remember, especially at this time of year, that most people don't decide their politics. They inherit them. It's about where you grew up in America, what your parents taught you, your life experiences, your religion. Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia was here recently, and I was amazed by the number of people who reached out after the show to say, wow, I kind of like her. Yeah, that's been my line for a while. Everyone's a monster till you talk to them.
Maher's recent visit to the White House is the perfect proof of the philosophy he's been preaching. He believes everyone looks like a monster until you're sitting across from them. His meeting with Trump didn't magically turn him into a MAGA supporter, but it forced him to deal with the actual human being instead of a media caricature. After that sit-down, Maher admitted he had to go back to his desk and rewrite his assumptions about how he discusses the president. This kind of intellectual honesty is exactly what makes the radical left so uncomfortable. His message is both simple and terrifying to some. Avoidance only creates more ignorance. That's why he is begging his fellow liberals to tear down their self-imposed walls and actually sit down with Republicans. It's not about surrendering your core values or normalizing anything. It's about understanding the reality of the country you live in. Maher argues that dialogue doesn't make a movement weak. It makes it bulletproof. When you stop screaming and start talking, the myths fall away and the truth finally gets a chance to stand up.
In our overtime segment that night, someone asked about the alien spaceship. Maybe you've been reading about it, the 3-1 Atlas comet that's headed to Earth and will arrive on December 19th to wipe out all life as we know it. It's a joke, don't worry. And when I quoted people in our own Defense Department who had said, well, hold on, what you think might be aliens actually could be fallen angels or demons. Marjorie agreed, saying, absolutely. She said, I'm a Christian conservative, angels and demons, that's what we believe. Okay, I think that's nuts. But you know what? So is this a girl or a boy? I can't tell by it.
This is a hard pill to swallow, but Maher is forcing it down anyway. He is reminding the left that they don't own a monopoly on wisdom, intelligence, or morality. The truth doesn't belong to just one side. Much like the right, the left has its own collection of wild theories, half-baked ideas, and massive blind spots. Maher isn't saying conservatives are perfect. He's saying the left's belief in its own intellectual superiority is a dangerous myth. And when you realize that myth is fake, the high horse posturing has to stop. If you assume you are automatically the smartest and most virtuous person in the room, you lose the ability to check your own work. Arrogance takes the wheel and logic goes out the window. Maher argues this smug attitude has destroyed actual political debate, turning the public square into a theater of the absurd. The moral scolding and constant virtue signaling are totally hollow if you can't defend your stance without calling your opponent stupid. In Maher's world, a little humility is worth more than 1,000 lectures.
As well as 1,000 other things about the Trump administration I never stop pointing out on this show. But I'm an adult, and in the real world, there's some people you just can't stop talking to, like your spouse or partner after a bad fight, tempting as that is. Like your of a boss, like your family, and like the President of the United States. This is so childish, so purely emotional. The people who got all butthurt because I had dinner with them, you know, because he's Hitler. Except he's not. So unhelpful and dumb. Trump is the most supportive president Israel and the Jews ever had.
This brings us to the most heartbreaking part of the whole situation. Far too many people have allowed political fever to destroy what were once loving, functional families. Lifelong friendships are ending over a tweet. Families have stopped speaking to each other. Marriages are failing under an ideological weight that didn't even exist 10 years ago. Much of this, as Maher points out, is driven by a refusal on the left to even attempt to reason with someone who thinks differently, even if that person is their own partner. Disagreement is now treated like a moral failure rather than a healthy part of life. Debate has been replaced by dismissal, and compromise has turned into pure contempt. When your political tribe becomes more important than your history, your love, or your respect for others, the society is in deep trouble. Maher's warning is clear and urgent. A nation that can't handle a disagreement over dinner is on the fast track to total dysfunction. If you can't coexist with the person across the table, how do you expect to survive in a country of 330 million strangers? Politics shouldn't require you to destroy your own home.
Every year I used to ask Larry David to do real time, and he'd always say, "Bill, I can't. I'm not smart enough about politics to do your show." Yeah, I get that now. Because there is no argument here. There's just the sugar rush that the no contact people get from never coming in second in a I hate Trump the most contest. Really? That's your strategy, to go full high school and tell the guy with all the power he can't sit with you at the lunch table? To borrow a phrase familiar to HBO viewers, you are not serious people.
There is a very specific reason for all this silence, and it's called fear. There is a terrifying worry among some on the left that if they actually engage in a fair debate, they might lose the argument on key issues. So the new strategy is simple: don't show up. Avoidance is the shield. This is exactly why Maher called out Larry David, who publicly trashed Maher just for visiting the White House and eating with Trump. The hypocrisy is stunning. Maher has invited David onto his platform many times, and every time, David declined, claiming he wasn't smart enough to talk politics. Yet, he somehow feels smart enough to publicly judge Maher's political decisions from the sidelines. This is the exact contradiction Maher is exposing. You cannot hide from the debate, claim you're not an expert, and then still demand the right to be morally outraged. If you want to throw stones, you have to be willing to step into the arena and defend your position.
Axios wrote a column in August entitled 11 Ways to Influence Trump, based on many interviews with people who have done that. Number 8, get face-to-face. The trick is getting in the room, away from cameras and social media. Trump will say or write horrible things, but rarely in person, one-on-one, where he comes off kinder, more interested, less erratic. Exactly. And there's a bunch of examples of this, most recently the CEO of Intel, who Trump was hating on, but then he met in person and now he's a great guy.
In the end, Maher's message is a masterclass in brutal clarity. The biggest threat to the left isn't Trump, it isn't the right-wing media, and it isn't the voters, it's the left's own intolerance for people who disagree. By refusing to engage or coexist with different viewpoints, many have built their own ideological prison. Politics has become too personal, and reason has been sacrificed at the altar of moral absolutism. Anyone who dares to stray from the approved script faces immediate social execution. Maher's White House visit, the backlash from people like Larry David, and the exile of moderate voices all point to one thing: a lack of confidence. There's a fear of being challenged, a fear of being wrong, and a fear of losing the high ground. Maher isn't asking liberals to give up their fight. He's asking them to fight like adults. Talk, debate, and argue your case, because a movement that can't handle a conversation will eventually stop making sense to the rest of the world. That's our breakdown for today. If this hit home, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.